Return to Glory podcast. We made it. It is game week. Monday evening before playing the UTEP Miners, Hunter Zarvnicki, Austin Rose, Dakota Freetag. I'm just going to say it because I know Dak's first words out of his mouth are going to be, I was 4-0 on my picks.
Congrats.
What were you this weekend, Hunter?
I don't want to talk about it. I just faded everything that you did, so do the math.
I knew those picks were locks the whole time. All that scouting really went into it.
You didn't even know which team was favored in one of the games.
Hey,
But he knew who was going to win.
they should have almost covered 11.5 too, but they blew that game. Oh well. I covered most of those with flying colors too. They were not even that close.
You didn't even know till I texted you at 10 a.m. the next morning. I don't want to hear it.
I went back and checked it out though.
You had no clue, but props, congrats, good start. 70%'s looking good.
Oh, there's still 12 weeks. It go down.
There's a lot of games left.
Yeah, it's good to start 4-0, but it can go downhill quick.
How about Florida State going down?
That's rough.
I'm not a big DJU fan. I mean, a lot of that's Clemson hate, but I don't think that dude can throw the ball very well at all. Yeah, I've never been big on him.
How many years has he been in college football? This has to be years, doesn't it? Gosh, it feels like
might only see 3 or 4. I think it's 2 years at Clemson, 1 at Oregon State. I think he's probably a senior this year.
Last year he was at Oregon State.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think he had a pretty good year there too, but God, I think the stat was 13 of his 19 completions didn't even go 5 yards in the air. So that tells you right there that Coach Steph doesn't believe in him.
Well, and that seems to be what he was doing at Oregon State too. It just, I don't know. I think he was a guy that had a really good few games. I would say like similar to like a Graham Mertz, that he looked really well for a couple of games when he was a freshman, and now he's just bouncing all over the place. But I think Florida State was a lot of people's, well, we saw it on College Game Day that a lot of them had them either the top 4 seed of winning the ACC or at least in the playoff. So we'll see. I'm not saying one loss it puts them out of the conversation. Definitely doesn't, but it was good to have football back in a good competitive game, especially from that one. And I guess all of them. I mean, I think the 2 big underdogs, Hawaii was a big favorite. They won.
That was a great game to watch.
Wasn't as much. Yeah, you watched every minute of it, didn't you?
Yep.
And then SMU squeaking out a win over Nevada, which I think was surprising to some people. I thought Nevada was horrible, and that was actually my favorite bet of the day, and did not happen. So, again, congrats, Dak. I knew you would.
For 4?
Yeah.
Wow, that's tough.
Wasn't good. So, long season ahead.
So that's what's good about this new playoff is though. Last year, Florida State would have been done already. Their season would be shot.
Shit, they were undefeated and they didn't make it in last year.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, there's a little bit of quarterback problem on that one. But that's at least it keeps teams like that still alive. Like the fans, you're supposed to be shot already one week in.
Yeah, that's the point of the college football season that we're at right now. Just finding anything that we can talk about. It's good to have football back, and there's a lot of Nebraska talk, but no games yet. So we do and will get to some of the updates from Coach Rhule in the press conference today that he had on Monday. Some good stuff. It was a lengthy one. It was long, but there's some good stuff in there. I think, as we all know, Rhule has always been very good with his words and how he presents everything. And I think, again, here did a really good job of setting the stage for the year. A lot of praise for UTEP and our official UTEP preview will be here in a couple of days. We'll come out with it on Thursday morning. We'll go through some key players that, you talked about a couple of defensive linemen for them that do a good job in their up-tempo, fast-paced offense that this coaching staff ran at Austin Peay. If you guys remember, Austin Peay was with Tennessee last year early on. I think it was like 6-6 right before halftime or something like that. Very competitive. So a lot more UTEP conversation. What have you guys heard so far from the Husker news?
Outside of Rhule's praise, expect to win. That's what I've heard. Excited to see Rhule.
Your depth chart came out. Looks like Alvana won the kicking job.
Didn't that say or?
You don't know how to read a depth chart either, do you?
Did it say or?
I think it said or. And he's not doing kickoffs.
Yeah.
So, Dak, your first Husker football take of the year is just wrong.
Well, you do have 4 running backs still. You don't know which one's going to be that starter.
We do, yeah. I think that was the most surprising thing, and Rhule got asked about it today as well, that there's 4 guys, and he said they're all going to play. Those guys being Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, Gabe Irvin, and Dante Dowdell. So it's not first, second, third, fourth string. You can think of them all as tied for first. Obviously, somebody's going to get the first snap and first carry, but right now it just seems like we are very similar. I'm going to use that word at that position, but I wanted to get your thoughts. Like what we'll read into it because that's what we need to do to talk about stuff today. But what do we think about 4 running backs right now? Good, bad?
I think it's good. That means that there isn't an obvious. It's good and bad. There isn't an obvious guy who's head and shoulders above everyone else, but I think we feel good about like Emmett Johnson from last year. So if you feel good about him going into this year, that means you should feel that same way about everyone because the coaching staff sees them on that same level. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it probably can't be a bad thing if you have 4 good running backs. I don't know. It can't be great either because that means that you don't have a stud.
Right.
Yeah, I think you guys are getting at what everybody probably thinks is that, and Rhule even mentioned it, there's no one's really stood out amongst the group, which is that good or bad? I don't know. A little bit scary. Maybe they're all just average backs. And I think we've talked about that too, right? I think we've said that's potentially what we have in the backfield, but I think that's good to have average depth all the way down through guy number 4, whoever that may be. The interesting thing he did say, though, is that that'll probably change year or week 3 or 4. So basically, it sounded like no one really stood out. He was hoping someone would stand out. They haven't. Going to give it some game time. I think the biggest thing is going to be, one, who's going to put the ball on the turf and turn it over. You don't do that, you're going to be in the running in week 4. And who can break a big play and who can be explosive out of the backfield. And it could be in the passing game as well, depending on how they utilize the backs with Raiola. So there's a lot of question marks there. I don't think it's bad necessarily, but Rhule just seemed a little bit, I don't say disappointed, but he just did. He just said, was hoping somebody would step out, but no one's there yet. We'll figure it out here in a few weeks. So I think that's the big takeaway from the depth chart. And as Dak falsely mentioned, the kicker not being decided yet. Yeah. So up in the air, we'll see who gets the first extra point, the first field goal. I'm guessing they'll probably alternate some. It sounds like there's going to be some more competitions going on this week with the kicking game. I think that's a lot of people's concern right now too. If they're both equal, I guess it's fine, but I don't think either one's great. We just got to be able to be solid there. We cannot hurt ourselves like we have in the past.
It'd be really nice to see Alvana be a little more consistent on that mid to longer range. Like I said, last week when we were talking about the depth, that was last week. Yeah, we were talking about the depth chart, and it's like he has a leg. He does have the second longest kick in Husker history, and he was pretty consistent under 30. It's that 30 to higher 30, lower 40 range that he was struggling last year.
I mean, yeah, he can have all the power he wants, but you want a kicker to come out there think he's going to make it, and now you're iffy if he's going to make any kick.
Right.
Kicking so hard, right? Because you don't want to ever publicly not give confidence in the guy, because that messes up everything internally. So I
Yeah, they're
think
mental midgets.
There's some truth to it, to what you have to say, but at the same time, bottom line is we got to have guys that want to make kicks, not are afraid to go out there and drill one. I think Rhule was it on Friday talked about, can't remember what it was, some sort of syndrome basically that makes, he said there's very few guys in their team that make it all about them. And it's always all about the rest of the team. And the couple of podcasts I've listened to, they were nitpicking that, as every podcast is doing right now, and saying how, I mean, sometimes you want guys that want the ball to be in their hands and want to be the one to make the tackle and want to be the one to go make the kick. And I think that's true. I don't think anybody would say that that's what Rhule was saying by that. But I think what he was saying was we have a lot of selfless guys. Oh, and the talk around that came to the numbers, when I think we had 3 guys that were number 18, and basically 2 of them came in and just voluntarily said, "Nope, I'm good." Like one of them being Bushini, just saying, I'm good. I can do something different. So I think that's good. I think that's a good quality to have in a team. But at the same time, we want guys that can go out and make us the winning plays, and we got to figure out who that is. We obviously haven't won many games, and we need to do that. Who are those guys going to be? Is Dylan Raiola? Are we gonna look at him in the fourth quarter down 7 and say, "Go win us a ball game"? We might. That might be the case. But what other guys out there can go make a play on defense or offense? Big catch, break a couple of tackles. Obviously, go pick a ball, get a strip fumble. What guys are going to do that? And I think Rhule says that all the time. We have to learn how to win games, and we're going to play the guys that are going to win games for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I might have read the depth chart wrong again. Did Malachi Coleman, is he a third stringer now?
We did wonder where he was going to fall. I can't remember exactly where he fell.
I don't remember.
I thought that was interesting.
Depth chart.
I think he's third string on, I can't remember what wide receiver group he was in, but
yeah, the wide receiving group was, for the most part, I thought as expected. We talked about Malachi potentially not,
Yeah, he was third,
making it hard to get on the list. I mean, there's some guys that we thought that would be ahead of him, and we thought Banks and Nair would be 2 of them, and they are. The surprising one that Rhule talked about today too is Janiron Bonner, in the slot. And I will say this too, just in general, I think 10 years ago, when you think of a slot receiver, you think of the Wes Welkers, the Jordan Westerkamps, the small, quick, shifty guys. Bonner's obviously not that. He's a converted fullback that lost a couple of pounds, but it still has a good, strong build for wide receiver. And you're seeing more teams moving their slot to more of that bigger body. That way you can move them around, and if you want to have some run game off of it. So, but I think that speaks volume to what they think he brings to the team. And Rhule talked about his versatility and the different things he can do. And that, if we still go 11 personnel, he can still come in and play fullback. Like, it's not just because there's no fullback on the depth chart doesn't mean that he can't do that.
Right. The slot spot is because it's got him, IGC, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, and Carter Nelson all on the depth chart. 3 very different players. Like, totally different builds, totally different skill sets.
And they'll probably all 3 be used.
And they'll probably all 3 be used.
You'd imagine.
Jalen Lloyd back up to Banks, which I think we're going to see him a lot out there. Ja'Cory Barney's sitting there too, ahead of Alex Bullock, which also, no offense to Alex Bullock, but that's good. I mean, it's a good sign that a guy like Barney.
Hey, he was our best receiver last year.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So I think that
did he have the most yards?
Sorry, what was that?
Did Alex Bullock actually have the most yards last year?
For a wide receiver, I think he was close.
Okay.
I'll pull it up. You keep talking.
Yeah. I don't know if we really need to know that stat, but
Yeah, but
it's not
I
gonna
did
be
not know
good.
that. We can.
Tight end, as expected. Fedoni starting there. Boa Constrictor, Nate Borkacher right behind him. And then offensive line, as our projected depth chart had him, starting from left to right, is Turner Corcoran, Justin Evans. On the left side, Ben Scott, center, Micah Mazuka, and Ben Hart on the right side. So it overall, there's not many surprises here. And I think another key thing when you talk about the oars, and it speaks even more to what we were talking earlier with the running backs, there's no oars on this offensive side until you get to the running backs. And I think that just tells you that the coaching staff has made their mind up on everything, but running backs still have room to prove. How they get used is going to be interesting. And I do want to spend a little time talking about what your guys' thoughts are. We can talk more Wednesday about it. What's this offense going to look like? We saw it in spring game, glimpses of Raiola, right? But obviously that was back in April, and we're sitting here in August. What's the run pass ratio going to look like? Like, what is this offense going to do? And we don't know. And Rhule's not saying too much about it, but he is hinting at certain things. So what are your guys' thoughts? What's it going to look like?
I feel like it's going to be a lot of run the ball, short passes to tight end in the middle, and then deep balls down the side. That's what I think it's going to be.
Yeah,
Really super complex.
totally different than last year's team. For sure, throw the ball a lot more. I kind of like what you said. I think you're gonna have a lot more deep shots this year, tied in across the middle. I don't think you're gonna throw Rail out there, at least early on, throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game.
I don't know what our exact percentage was last year, but it was definitely
Pretty
run
close
heavy.
to 50-50, I thought. I think it was like 55 running, 45 pass, question mark.
And I know we were one of the more run heavy teams in the country from a percentage and yardage standpoint as well, which I think was what we had last year. So I was interested to see what you guys thought, because I just have a hunch. This is my hunch. It's not I guess it is a prediction and a take. The way Rhule talks makes me feel like more along Dak's lines that we're going to throw it 35, 40 times a game. And it might look ugly and people might be upset, because today he talked about we're playing Dylan Raiola like it's going to be his junior year. We want to be putting stuff in now, what we're going to run at the end of the season. The last game he talked about being very, very important. And so building everything around that thought and what we want to look like the last 3-4 games of the year. We're going to work on that now. And he talked about how it might not look pretty at times, but there has to be patience and tweaking. You can't just scrap everything if it doesn't look good. And then he caught himself and he's like, but we are going to run the ball. We are going to go out there and still run it. So to me, he knows Nebraska fans, the old timers and people that saw the success when we were really good, want to see us run the ball a lot. I think that's still going to be a part of it. And he says it is, but I think it's not going to be what people think, which makes me think it is going to be a lot more throwing, but I don't think it's going to be like a Texas Tech air raid throw. It's going to be what you said, Austin. I think a lot of dink and dunks, potential taking a long shot. What I keep hearing him talk about Raiola is his strong ability to read a defense and comprehend things that a typical freshman or any quarterback that we've had recently hasn't been able to do in the passing game. Specifically, like, think about him in the pocket, right? How many of our previous quarterbacks, when we see a blitz, one, can they identify it pre-snap? And two, when some guy's coming at him, what has been a lot of their reaction?
Run.
Fall down and freak out.
Run, but I'm going to do a little bit of Dak on college football 25 comparison. They just flip their hips and kind of turn around and run backwards, right? And try to scoot around, dance around the backside, and like Adrian was good at that. Taylor Martinez was good at that. Tommy Armstrong, he had his big move was the 5-step drop and then the flip of the hips and would run around the outside. I think Raiola is going to step up in the pocket and he's going to have his mechanics down to where, yeah, if we take a sack, it might just be a 4 or 5 yard sack and not so much of panic mode, hot route, XYZ, which is what was happening a lot of times with these athletic quarterbacks that we've had. So it's going to look different, I think, in that aspect, but I think it's only going to help our offense. But I do. I think there's going to be some deep balls in there. I expect us against UTEP to take 4 or 5 shots down the field, minimum. I think that's going to be a part of the offense.
Last year, our split was 64-36 running the ball. I was not thinking about how our quarterbacks ran it for 200 of our 450 rushes.
Yep.
And
so I do.
Bullock was second in receiving receptions, third in receiving yards for our receivers.
Rhule continues to use the word complementary football when he talks about the offense. He said a lot of that last year as well. Complementary football. That's a very vague term that basically just means our run should feed the pass and our pass should feed the run. I like that answer. It's just very vague. It doesn't give you a whole lot of insight. But guys, I just have a hunch that Raiola's throwing it 35 or 40 times, and there's going to be some adversity early on. Maybe even in the UTEP game, but Colorado game, we have the teams that maybe we can have it, but it might take some patience. If this is how they want to run their offense, and if it doesn't work out in the end, it could be a very poor ending. But I'm not going to go that far right now in week 1 before we even play a week 1 game.
When they say complementary football too, I think they mean complementary. You can be complementary towards your defense too, help them out. You can run down because last year you didn't help them out one bit. That Colorado game was one of the worst not complementary footballs to your defense you could have had. So you want to control the ball more and not have them on the field gas the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, when we got down last year, we didn't get down big in too many games, but the Colorado game is a perfect example. Once we're down 2-3 touchdowns, it's game over. Like, our offense was not built to put up points fast and then our defense stay fresh out there. You saw the games that we competed in, a lot of them, how those went. I don't think it's going to look like that this year. It's going to look a little different. So I'll be curious to Rhule's comments, how that plays out. He was almost prepping people's minds to be patient with what this offense could do, but without putting anybody down and saying that's going to struggle, which he's not going to say and can't say, but be patient with what it could look like. That's my hunch. Like, I could be wrong. We could come out and run it 60% of the time, and Ramir could have 14 carries, Emmett could have 12, and Irvin Dowdell each have 8. And maybe it could, but I don't think they're going to play Raiola as a game manager. They're not going to do it. I don't think he would be happy with that. If we're 7-5 at the end of the year and all he was a game manager, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't know what that means. I think obviously you want a guy that's team first, and if that's the best way to win, that's all we've said we need, right? From a quarterback, is someone that can just go out and game manage and not turn it over,
not lose.
I don't think our offense is going to look like last year, though, less turnovers. It's going to look different. That's just my hunch. And
I mean, you got a major problem if it does.
Look, from a production standpoint, yes, but I'm just talking from a style standpoint and what we're trying to do. There's going to be some similar things, I think, but we're going to use our playmakers. We're going to use these speed guys, and we're going to use Raiola. It's going to look different in my mind. So, any other offensive comments?
Is he quick enough to do any read option, or you think that's out the window?
I think the quarterback run game is going to be minimal. I guess, before we move on, I think that brings up a good point with Heiner Carberg and how he's going to get used. He will get used. I'm not sure if he will in the UTEP game, but he's going to play. I don't know where.
That Rhule, when they announced QB1, he was the first guy that was told was Harburg. So Rule likes him, respects him, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy's like Scott Frost. It's like he really likes him. He's gonna get him.
Mhm. Yeah, there's gonna be some packages for him. We got to remember, guys, he won us football games last year. Like, it's not like when he comes in the game at quarterback, it's like, oh my God, he's gonna run the ball.
It wasn't
Like,
Jeff Sims last year when he came in. You're like, oh my gosh, this man's gonna fumble the ball. Like he had his fair share of turnovers,
he had his
but
moments, but yes.
he was not that. We were not worried about him on the field.
He
Um,
must have improved a lot too this offseason, the way they've been talking about him.
yeah, I mean, in the passing game as well. So, oh, and I guess when we knew this, he is the for sure number 2, and Danny Kalen is the definite 3, which is interesting that Gramstead isn't even an or on there. So that is worth noting. Defensive side of the ball, no ors here, and I think from what we had estimated or predicted, it's pretty much on point. We still or we were pretty accurate on our secondary. The key talk I think in the press conference was about the linebackers. I mean, Rhule was pretty confident in them, which that was our big question mark when we went through our defensive preview.
Doesn't that kind of mean when your coach is like, I'm really confident in this one particular position, that we were all like, we're none of us are really confident in this one particular position. It makes you feel like, well, maybe he's not so confident, but he needs to say it.
Right, to get people to believe it.
Yeah.
The position that he was a little bit iffy on was a secondary, which I think that was, in my mind, I interpreted that more of this is what UTEP's going to bring on Saturday. And we have some guys playing some new spots, but it's going to be a fast paced, high tempo, no huddle type offense. They're going to throw it around a lot, and it's going to be hot. We have guys that can play, but we're not as deep there in the secondary to where if we do need to be subbing a lot, which it sounds like we're going to, there's going to be some guys playing that we haven't seen. I mean, you look at our number 2s. There's a lot of guys that are freshmen or juniors that are guys that we haven't seen play many minutes. So they'll be out there. Bly Hill was one that is still banged up and injured. That's why he's sitting there at 3. I think people were a little like concerned as why he fell down, but it's more of an injury thing. It sounds like
he's been out since the spring game. So
yeah. So no word on Javin Wright either. It sounds like he's still not healthy. He's not listed obviously here this week. But yeah, no ors. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The defensive line, as expected, had a lot of positive things that were said about him, and a lot of guys that can play. And I think we're going to see a lot of different names. They even went 3 deep on a couple of the DNs. That hints that maybe even guys like Kai Wallen and James Williams, you might actually see him out there on Saturday.
And they said some good things about James Williams last week.
Mm-hmm.
So you do see him out there.
Special teams, we talked about Alvano and John Hull not really knowing their kickoff. It's John Hull or Buschini kicking off there. Returners are guys.
Does that tell you Alvano's hamstring's still not good then?
Probably.
No, maybe, I don't know. It sounds like Rhule says he's healthy. I just don't think we're strong there. I don't think Alvano's not the guy that if he's healthy, he's a definite kicker. He wasn't good enough last year to just walk in and earn a starting spot.
Yeah.
So Ramir Johnson, Ja'Cory Barney, Dax Boy, IGC, all guys we're expecting to see back there in the return game. Anything else, special teams?
Nah, it's just Alvano. That's the only thing you want to know. How healthy is he? Is he going to be better this year?
All right. Well, yeah, we will touch base more on UTEP here on Wednesday. Before we move on from college football, first thing I'm going to introduce something that us 3 are going to do. Here is a survivor pool. for college football. So NFL Survivor Pool, you pick a winner, you get it right, you move on to the next week. You pick a loser, you're done, you're eliminated. We're going to see which one of us three lasts the longest. We'll just see if we're out early enough. Maybe we'll give a second chance. Here's how we're going to do this. You got to pick. Ooh, should we do 3 or 4? Let's
Three.
do 4. You do
All
3.
right.
There's enough college football teams out there.
That's fair.
4 times 12. Yeah, we'll do 4. You got to pick 4 outright winners, not against the spread, just to win the game every week. Once you use that team up, you cannot use them again the rest of the year. So there's very different ways to go about this. There's obviously going to be several weeks where there's teams that are favored by 40. You can use them early. You can save those teams for later, but you got to pick 4 every week, and all 4 of them have to win. We will start with our picks on Wednesday. So wanted to give you guys a heads up to start thinking. I haven't even looked at stuff yet, but we're going to do that as a challenge instead of every week trying to go through and pick a lot of games. Dak will do his picks, but
Okay, I can handle that.
Who's taking you, Tip?
Not this week. Not this week.
Second thing, got to comment on Dak. Oklahoma's got a big game this week.
Friday night.
Give you some time to explain what your scout is on. Who is it? Tulsa? Is that who they're playing?
Temple.
Knew it was a T.
There's really only one thing I want to talk about because I guarantee most listeners don't care about Oklahoma on here. Did you see who QB3 was, Austin? For Oklahoma? No. Casey Thompson won third string job. A freshman beat him out. Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
Guess Casey Thompson's age, Austin. We looked this up too.
He's got to be like 25.
He's 25.
But how pissed has he got to be? It's 6th year he goes there, and there's probably no Sean Haley plays this year now.
No.
And then second piece of Oklahoma talk that I know some listeners do care about, Dak. I want you to tell me how your Red River shootout game went with your brother on college football.
Next question. I lost 27-20 through 3 pick sixes. You know what? Rebound, rebuild.
Yikes.
That's all I got to say about that. It was a bad game. I'm still hearing shit about it.
And you will never stop.
No. I got a phone call about 5 o'clock tonight. Still hearing about it.
All right. Last order of business here before we go. Fantasy football. Every year we do a little brief preview. We'll talk about our strategies, our thoughts.
Guys you like.
Even done drafts on it before. We're not going to go that in deep depth this year. But do want to get your guys' thoughts on the upcoming year, how many leagues you're in, any takes you got on any players, strategies, etc.
I'm in 3 leagues. I don't like to be in more than 2. One of the leagues I don't get a draft. It's an auto draft, and then that's the team you get. So I'll be in. I did have a question for you guys. I've been chewing on for a while, both gambling and fantasy. The new special teams kickoff rules. Does that impact how you draft defenses? And or for point spreads, are you more likely to take the over because they're not going to properly adjust for a higher point caused by the new field position? Like, do I want the Kansas City Chiefs defense because I think Andy Reid's going to have better special teams and you're going to get more points on the special teams?
Oh, boy, I don't, because there's going to be a lot more returns.
Are there?
Yeah, I think so.
There might be better returns.
I haven't looked. What's the preseason stats shown?
I don't know.
I have no clue.
I didn't watch many games, but the ones I did watch, I didn't see many big returns. But your point, Austin, I think the field position was slightly better. Yes.
Yeah. So is offense going to score more? So for gambling, do I want to take the overs? And then for fantasy, do I want to take better special teams units like the Kansas City Chiefs as a defense and the special teams over maybe a more dominant regular defense?
That's a fascinating thought. As of right now, I'm just going to say no, but I think there could be some correlation. Like there could. I just don't.
I don't know. I've just been chewing on it. I can't decide either way. I feel like the offense.
I mean, the kickoffs are basically eliminated before this year. Now, the preseason I watched a little bit, I saw a lot more returns. Like people are actually taking out. Last year,
right. I think there's going to be more returns. Is it going to result in more touchdowns? I
Correct.
don't know. But there's going to be
Dak, you do realize the whole point of putting the new rule in was so there was more returns. Like,
right.
yeah,
that's why they put it in.
So that increases your odds of having touchdowns because there's more returns.
Correct.
So it's like, I don't know. Something I want you on.
Yeah, I'm in 6 leagues.
That's too many.
It's a lot. 2 of them though, I will say, are dynasty leagues where my players all carry over. And I'm in full sell mode on both of them, so I don't expect to win many, if any, games. But I do have a lot of picks the next 2 or 3 years, so that's promising. One more draft left. I think the consensus from a lot of people this year in fantasy is the decline of the running back. The past couple of years, McCaffrey's going 1 in a lot of people's drafts, but after that, there's 4 or 5 receivers that you could argue could all go before the second running back, which is typically Breece Hall. So I think that's a general theme in my drafts. I've kind of followed that and tried to get 2 receivers in the first 3 rounds. Not saying I've done that in every draft, but the biggest thing I would say to people is know your league, know your rules, know the points, because it can vary. Everybody's got unique, different tweaks to their scoring and rosters and all of that. So that's the most important thing as people are drafting and finishing drafts up.
Any guys?
I made a rule a couple years ago. I only do 1 league now.
That's fair.
I don't like cheering. You have 2 people playing each other against different teams, 2 different leagues. I don't like that. I only do 1 league.
Yeah, that's good. I'm obviously the opposite of that. But I do try to draft guys that I like similarly, even if I have to reach up for them a little bit more, and try to avoid guys I just think could be busts. So I do stick to that, but it happens where I'm playing against guys that I have in other leagues, and I do prioritize like 1 or 2. Usually it's the ones that I have the more expensive buy-in. But I prioritize those for sure as far as waiver wire pickups, trades, and all of that, and then kind of round out the other ones. But it's a good way, I think, still for just to stay in touch with different friend groups. That's my big thing. That's why I'm still in so many, because there's different friend groups I'm a part of, or coworkers that it makes good conversation.
I heard your coworker draft was last night.
Oh yeah, A+ draft, great on Yahoo.
That's what I heard.
Yep. So, all right.
Lady Husker shout out. Red White game went well. Andy Jackson looks like a stud. That's it.
Everyone's played in it too. That was funny. We will be back Wednesday. UTEP Minor full preview, so we can start 1-0, 1 game at a time. Go Big Red.
GBR.
Boomer Sooner.